as I start to think about Ezekiel Elliott, it made me kind of drift back to the Le'Veon Bell situation. Le'Veon Bell sat out the entire season with Pittsburgh, and people called him kind of bonkers for leaving, what was it, Perla, $14 million on the table?
Yeah, about that.
But you put yourself in a Le'Veon Bell's shoes, and this might be the position Ezekiel Elliott's in down the line. What's the shelf life of running backs in the NFL? 7 years? 8 years? Tops? While quarterbacks see their shelf life grow 3, 4, 5 years, they're half expected at this point, if they're efficient, to play into their 40s. Running backs still, you get to age 30, and you're like expired milk. There's an issue with you playing there at that point. Nobody's going to give you a big money contract. So for Le'Veon Bell, there may not be as much downside to sit out the entire season in order to get a big contract next year. Now, it's a massive roll of the dice. I get that. But if Le'Veon Bell, either from the Steelers or somebody else, gets a guaranteed $30, $35 million and can have one full year of not taking the wear and tear. Le'Veon Bell carried the ball 321 times last year. You think that didn't have an impact on Le'Veon Bell in contract negotiations? He's probably sitting there saying, these guys are going to run me into the ground, and I might be able to collect $14 million, but I might have a lesser year. My body might feel a little bit lesser. I don't have a problem with that. I think Ezekiel Elliott at some point is going to face that. How many contracts is Ezekiel Elliott going to get? One more after this? Maybe 2 at most? You got to collect every nickel you can if you are playing running back in the NFL. Yeah, Fritzy.
And when you were talking about quarterbacks versus running backs, there's just more and more rules protecting the quarterback and adding to their longevity, and you can't touch them, you can't fall on top of them, you got to kind of roll off of them. There's no rules for certainly not running back or any other position where they're worried about that, but for quarterback, you can barely touch them these days, which gives them more years that they can play.
I mean, even wide receivers, the NFL's come a long way in protecting them. You can't hit them going over the middle. They've tried to their credit, eliminate the concussions that have plagued wide receivers over the years. The shelf life of wide receivers seems to be growing a little bit. Running backs, they don't. There's no way to protect running backs and keep them playing in the NFL longer. Yeah, Seed.
Right. I mean, what do they say? The average career length is 3 or 4 years in the NFL. And so if you somehow make it past that and you have the leverage to actually demand a better contract, yeah, you owe it to yourself. You take advantage of that, 100%.
Absolutely. And running backs, we were talking before the show. Remember Joe Morris, running back for the Giants, had the fortune and misfortune of playing for Bill Parcells in New York. Bill Parcells ran him into the ground. Joe Morris's prime years, I'd love to know, contracts were different back then, but I'd love to know how much money Joe Morris made compared to guys that played 10, 11, 12 years. There was a 5-year stretch where Joe Morris was one of, and at times, the best running back in the NFL. Then he flamed out because he was run into the ground. Same thing with Le'Veon Bell, and it's going to be the same thing with Ezekiel Elliott. If these guys have an opportunity to make money over a long-term contract, the only offers they're getting are short-term deals. I don't begrudge them sitting out in the way that Le'Veon Bell did.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.